Number 5. I was in middle school at the time, but my old elementary school that happened to be next to the local high school went into lockdown. The high school had a turf field that ran alongside the elementary school recess area boundary. One recess, a second or third grader was playing by the boundary and saw suspicious activity on the turf field. The child decided the best course of action was to tell the recess duty. The duty thought the best thing to do was to end recess and inform the school. The school thought that a lockdown was the next best course of action. No one ever bothered to take a peek at the turf field or inform the high school of this suspicious person. They did, however, call the cops and were on lockdown for several hours. The high school was never informed and continued normally for the rest of the day. The suspicious person was a man on the turf field walking a pink poodle while holding a gun. The cops, surprisingly, never found the man. I wish I made this story up. Several years later, I learned that this, as he became known, Pink Poodle, man was in fact my friend's older brother, and he was doing a workout regimen alone. The Pink Poodle and gun were just workout equipment. The district has since rewritten some of their pre-lockdown procedures. Number 4. When I was in high school, over the intercom, we hear the principal say something to the effect of, "Will Mr. So-and-so please report to the office?" which was the rehearsed phrase for teachers, lock your doors and hide your students. So the doors were locked and lights turned off while we hid in the corner of the classroom. My class being on the first floor close to the main office, we were the first to have the security guard come by. All the students were lined up in the hall, shoes were removed, and every one of us patted down by this middle-aged, overweight, and highly underqualified security guard with the help of a single police officer. Anything we weren't supposed to have was confiscated. Nail clippers, all of the cell phones, MP3 players, what have you. This was repeated for every class on all 4 floors of the main building. All in all, about 80% of the students got searched. No one knew why, and we spent the next 2 hours just sitting in our classroom like WTF. Did that just happen? The history teacher on the 4th floor had apparently held the security guard at Flagpole Point, you know where it gets all pointy and menacing, behind a barricade of desks until he fessed up about what was going on. Someone had called some local news agency to report a fake bomb threat, which was taken about as seriously as you'd expect. This was 2009/2010, post 9/11, you know. The aftermath was pretty tame. As soon as it was established there was no threat. All told, roughly 3 hours of schooling lost, with 300 plus cell phones and other miscellaneous electronics confiscated. Only about 500 students in my high school. Parents had to come by when school let out to pick up their kids' shit. And man, that was a bitch to wade through when I just wanted to get home. Not really scary though. Students got felt up, phones taken, and 3 glorious hours wasted over a false alarm. Number 3. The teacher told us to stay in our seats and walk to the next class to find out what the crack was with aforementioned bang. It was then announced over the intercom that all students were to remain in their class for the rest of the day, about another 90 or so mins. We spent the rest of the day up there doing our homework and speculating what the fuck that sound had been. When the end of day came, we were escorted to the buses. Usually we could walk down unattended on a long detour around the school, whereas we could normally have made the journey in approximately 30 seconds. This one took 2 minutes. First sign of trouble was seeing 3 marked police cars at the front of the school. Second sign was seeing 2 officers with MP5 submachine guns standing by the main student entrances. The third and final, and most damning sign of trouble, was the fact that of the 4 large pane glass windows to some of the front-facing classes, 2 had shattered completely. On the bus home, further speculation suggested it had been a bomb. Others said it was a massive firework of some kind. Some of my friends had been closer to the source of the explosion and said one of the teachers had a breakdown later on. The next day, The windows had been repaired, but an area of the school was still damaged. There had been lockers beside a small set of stairs and double doors in front of the steps. The doors were splintered and the lockers no longer there. It eventually emerged that the source of the explosion had been quite a large firework, which the school seniors had fashioned a time-delayed fuse, somehow using cigarettes or something that allowed them to detonate it when there would be no one in the vicinity. Apparently it was a firework in the school, and nobody got expelled, surprisingly. Number 2. Gunshots erupted in the hallways during the transition from first to second period. Just as the first few shots echoed, the principal's shaky voice declared lockdown over the intercom. This was not a drill. Students dropped their backpacks and sprinted for their lives, diving into classrooms, whilst all teachers locked their doors and turned off the lights, ushering students under the desks. Being teenagers, the students had naturally believed themselves to be immortal. Now they all held back tears. This was the first time they've ever truly feared for their lives. Two panicked students barreled around a corner, then slid to a stop, a teacher's urgent whisper grabbing their attention. "Annie, Melissa, get in here," Mr. Anderson called to them. The students rushed into the room with Mr. Anderson, the drama teacher, crying and trembling with fear. "It's gonna be okay, don't worry," Mr. Anderson said. It appeared he'd been shot, for he was clutching his leg as it bled. He let go of his leg to hold Annie tightly, trying to console her. Melissa joined the hug, clinging to him tightly. "Everything's gonna be okay," Mr. Anderson repeated to them. "You'll be fine." The girls almost believed him, until he let go of them and took some steps back. They looked at him, confused, but then Melissa's jaw slowly dropped, unable to scream. Annie's eyes widened, tears slowly escaping her eyes and moving down her face. Mr. Anderson smiled at the girls as he pulled a pistol from his pocket. His leg was fine. It was covered in fake blood. His smile never left his face as he racked the slide back. Number 1. In high school, a kid figured out if he made a bomb threat, he could get out of class, so we had about 8 bomb threats in 2 weeks. Every time, they would always evacuate everyone in the building, 2,500 plus students, down onto the bleachers of the football field. We would have to sit there for hours on the hot metal bleachers with no water, while bomb squads combed through the entire school. After the first few, they let some people sit under the bleachers in the shade. It became really stupid because when there was a bomb threat, they would gather every single person in the building into one spot, on metal 3 stories in the air. After the first one, I knew to always bring all of my stuff with me to the bleachers, so I could just leave when school ended. But the searches went on for a really long time, so most upperclassmen would have to wait until they were done to go back inside for their keys so they could drive home.